In May 2026, a company most people still think of as the ChatGPT alternative became worth $900 billion. That's more than OpenAI, more than SpaceX, and more than Disney, Netflix, and Uber combined. The company is Anthropic. This is the story of how the Safety Lab, the company that was supposed to be too careful to win, became the most valuable AI company on Earth. They won by making ChatGPT irrelevant to the people who actually spend money on AI. Let's rewind, because to understand how Anthropic got here, you have to understand what they bet on. In 2021, a group of senior researchers walked out of OpenAI, Dario Amodei, Daniela Amodei, and about a dozen others. Their reason? They believed OpenAI was moving too fast, prioritizing deployment over safety, racing to ship instead of racing to get it right. They founded Anthropic with a thesis that sounded naive at the time. Safety and trust would be a competitive advantage, not a constraint. The industry laughed. Safety doesn't win markets, they said. Features win markets. For the first 3 years, it looked like the skeptics were right. ChatGPT exploded. OpenAI became a household name. 300 million weekly active users. Anthropic, they were the other chatbot. While OpenAI was winning the consumer war, Anthropic was quietly building something entirely different. They weren't competing for your chat tab. They were competing for your trust and security. A ChatGPT Plus subscriber pays $20 a month. An enterprise Claude deployment, where Claude is embedded in payroll, underwriting, contract review, and code review, runs $1 million a year per customer, and Anthropic has over 1,000 of them. Anthropic's Q1 2026 revenue grew 80 times year over year. Annual recurring revenue is above $44 billion. That's an infrastructure scale growth. The company that was supposed to be the careful one just became the most valuable AI company on the planet. And they did it by betting that enterprises don't want the flashiest AI, they want the one they can trust. So how do you go from $380 billion to $900 billion in 3 months? 3 deals. And each one tells you something about where this is going. The first one, May 14th, 2026, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, announces it is deploying Claude Code and Claude Cowork to its entire global workforce, hundreds of thousands of professionals. This is not a let's try it on one team experiment. PwC is certifying 30,000 US professionals on Claude. They're building an entire office of the CFO practice on top of it. They've set up a joint center of excellence with Anthropic. The results? Insurance underwriting that used to take 10 weeks now takes 10 days. That's beyond an efficiency gain. It's a different category. They're reporting delivery time reductions of up to 70% across production deployments. 70%. If a competitor adopts this and you don't, you're not behind, you're out of the running. Here's why this isn't like every other enterprise AI announcement you've seen. PwC doesn't experiment. PwC is the firm that other companies hire to tell them what to do. When PwC deploys your product to its entire workforce, they become your customer, your case study, and your sales pitch to every other enterprise on Earth. Deal 2. May 13th. Anthropic launches Claude for Small Business. This one's worth paying attention to. Claude for Small Business is a toggle inside Claude Cowork. You flip a switch and Claude connects to QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot, Canva, DocuSign, Google Workspace, and Microsoft 365. 15 pre-built agentic workflows, payroll planning, month-end close, invoice chasing, campaign management, contract review. Every action requires user approval before executing. Claude won't send money, won't post content, won't sign a contract without you saying yes. That's not a limitation, that's the product. Small businesses account for 44% of US GDP, but their deep AI adoption rate is 7%. 7. Anthropic looked at that gap and saw the entire thing as an addressable market. This is the enterprise play in miniature. Win the small business owner who does payroll in QuickBooks. Win the marketing manager who lives in HubSpot. Make Claude the thing everything connects through. And once it's in, it's not coming out. Deal 3, May 6th. Anthropic signs a deal to access SpaceX's Colossus 1 supercomputer, 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs, 300 megawatts of compute. This isn't a normal cloud contract. Anthropic's own AWS and Google Cloud capacity doesn't fully come online until 2027. Colossus 1 is the bridge. They're not waiting for the $900 billion round to close. They're scaling now. The same day, Claude Code rate limits doubled across all paid plans. Overnight, 220,000 GPUs will do that. 3 deals, 8 days. Enterprise, small business, infrastructure. This is not a product launch. This is a platform assembling itself in real time. Deals get you in the room. Product keeps you there. And the product Anthropic shipped in April 2026 is the reason those deals are happening. Claude Opus 4.7 is a different category of thing, not just a better model. And to understand why, you need to understand what it actually does. Not the benchmark scores, what it does when you use it. First, it works for hours without you. Previous models, including GPT 5.5, they're great for a task. Give them a problem, they solve it, they come back. Opus 4.7 works through tool failures. It verifies its own outputs before reporting back. It pushes through hard problems instead of looping or giving up. Devin, the AI coding company, reported that Opus 4.7 works coherently for hours, pushes through hard problems rather than giving up. Notion said it keeps executing through tool failures that used to stop Opus cold. This is less like a chatbot and more like someone you hired. Second, it sees. Opus 4.7 processes images at over 2,500 pixels on the long edge. That's more than 3 times what previous Claude models could handle. It can read fine print in a screenshot. It can spot the misaligned pixel in a UI mockup. It scored 98.5% on a visual acuity benchmark, up from 54.5% for Opus 4.6. Third, it remembers across sessions, across days. Opus 4.7 uses file system-based memory. It writes notes to itself, reads them back in future sessions, and maintains context across multi-day projects. This is the thing that makes Claude Code feel like working with someone, not using something. The benchmarks back all of this up. SWE bench, verified 72%. That's up from 58% on Opus 4.6. Cursor bench, clearing 70%, up from 58%. Big Law bench, a legal reasoning benchmark from the firm Harvey, 90.9% at high effort. On Rakuten's production coding benchmark, it resolves 3 times more tasks than Opus 4.6. There's a new effort level called X-High between high and max. In Claude Code, X-High is the new default. There's a / command called Ultra Review that runs a dedicated code review session. There are task budgets that let developers control how many tokens Claude spends on long runs. And then there's Claude Code Auto Mode. Auto Mode lets Claude make decisions on your behalf. It runs autonomously. You give it a goal and it figures out the steps, executes them, verifies the results, and reports back. You don't prompt it, you assign it. Beyond Auto Mode, Anthropic also launched managed agents, sandboxed execution environments where Claude can spin up isolated workspaces, checkpoint its progress, and run with scoped credentials. The pitch, infrastructure, not intelligence, is now the bottleneck for production agents. This is the backend that makes the PwC deal actually work at enterprise scale. Now, there's one more thing about Opus 4.7, and it's the part Anthropic doesn't lead with, but everyone in the industry is talking about. Opus 4.7 is not Anthropic's most capable model. Mythos Preview, previously known as Project Glasswing, remains their best model. The most capable and the best aligned model they've ever trained according to Anthropic, but you can't use it. It's gated, restricted. Why? Because Mythos has cybersecurity capabilities that Anthropic considers too dangerous for general release. The UK's AI Safety Institute assessed that GPT 5.5 matches mythos on cyber benchmarks, which means the gap between what's public and what's restricted is closing, and Anthropic is the only lab choosing to keep their best model behind a gate. So Opus 4.7 is what they shipped instead, a model where they deliberately reduced the cyber capabilities. In plain English, they made it less capable in specific dangerous areas. It's the civilian version of a model too powerful to release. Whether you think that's principled or performative, it's the single most important differentiator in Anthropic's strategy. So the strategy is working. Enterprise trust, infrastructure scale, product depth, $900 billion, says the market agrees. But there are three problems, and any one of them could change the story. Problem one, the government that buys the most AI in the world just locked them out. On May 1st, 2026, the Pentagon finalized classified AI contracts with 8 companies: OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, SpaceX, Oracle, and a startup called Reflection AI. Anthropic's not on that list. Anthropic was excluded not because their technology isn't good enough, but because they refused to remove the ban on autonomous weapons and mass surveillance from their usage policy. Dario Amodei has called the policy a technical envelope, not just a moral guideline. The original Anthropic Pentagon contract from July 2025 was worth $200 million. The lost pipeline is estimated at $3 to $5 billion over 5 years. And OpenAI, who removed their military ban in January 2024, is now operating on classified networks at Impact Level 6 and Impact Level 7. The question is whether this matters. Anthropic's enterprise revenue is growing so fast that Pentagon money might be irrelevant, but there's a second-order effect. The Pentagon is also an AI development partner. The models trained on classified data for classified use cases. Those capabilities eventually influence commercial products. Anthropic is locked out of that feedback loop. Problem 2. China. In a 12-day window in May 2026, 4 Chinese frontier models dropped: DeepSeek 5.4, GLM 5.1, Kimi K 2.6, Minimax M 2.7. All of them matching Western frontier capability on agentic coding benchmarks, none of them costing more than a third of Claude Opus 4.7. DeepSeek V4 offers a 1 million token context window at 27 cents per million input tokens. For comparison, Claude Opus 4.7 is $5 per million input tokens. That's an 18 times price difference for comparable capability on coding benchmarks. The Chinese pricing collapse changes the economics of the entire industry. If frontier capability becomes a commodity, and at 27 cents per million tokens, then what exactly are enterprises paying Anthropic for? Anthropic's answer, and this is the bet, is that enterprises aren't buying tokens. They're buying trust, safety guarantees, and deep workflow integration. QuickBooks and DocuSign and HubSpot don't connect to DeepSeek. PwC doesn't bet its client work on a model from a lab that could be subject to Chinese government data access. But price pressure is real, and Google I/O, which wrapped on May 20th, made the stakes even clearer. Google launched Gemini 3.5 Flash as their new flagship. It's at GPT 5.5 level, but still short of Anthropic's mythos on frontier benchmarks. They also launched Gemini Spark, a 24/7 autonomous agent that works across Gmail and Docs, even while your laptop is closed. Sound familiar? It should. It's Google's direct answer to Claude Code Auto Mode. Google's real weapon isn't a better model. It's distribution. 3 billion users get a better AI experience immediately, through search, through the Gemini app, through the API. That's reach neither Anthropic nor OpenAI can match. Google doesn't need to beat Claude on benchmarks. They need to make Gemini good enough everywhere for free, while Anthropic charges $5 per million tokens for the premium version. Problem 3, regulation. All 5 frontier labs are now under pre-deployment review by CAISI, the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, a unit inside the US Commerce Department that screens unreleased AI models for national security risks. Before any frontier model ships, CAISI checks whether it could help a bad actor build a cyber weapon, a biological pathogen, or a chemical weapon. The regulation itself isn't the problem for Anthropic. They've been asking for this. The risk is that regulation levels the playing field. If everyone has to pass the same safety checks, Anthropic's trust advantage becomes less unique. So here's where we are. Anthropic went from a safety-first startup that everyone called naive to the most valuable AI company on Earth. Their enterprise bet is working. Their product is arguably the best in the world for people who actually build things. And they've done it without compromising on the thing they said mattered most. But $900 billion is a valuation, not a victory. The Pentagon lockout is real. The Chinese pricing collapse is accelerating. And the enterprise trust moat, the thing the entire strategy depends on, hasn't been tested in a downturn yet. Anthropic is the most interesting AI company in the world right now, not because they have the most users, but because they're making the biggest bet. The bet is that trust isn't a constraint on growth. It's the growth strategy, that enterprises will pay a premium for AI that doesn't do everything, because they need AI that won't do anything they can't control. If they're right, 900 billion is the floor. If they're wrong, if the market chooses price over trust, or if the Chinese models become impossible to ignore, or if the government lockout starves them of the relationships that drive enterprise sales, then this is the peak. One thing I'm fairly sure of, the AI industry is splitting into two tiers. Companies that sell tokens and companies that sell outcomes. Token sellers compete on price and price is going to zero. Outcome sellers compete on trust, integration, and reliability. Anthropic picked the second tier before it was obvious that's where the value was. Google I/O just confirmed it. Google can match anyone on distribution, but they're still chasing Anthropic on the frontier. The question is whether the frontier matters more than reach. That's the story of how the safety lab became worth more than the company it walked out of. The question now isn't whether they can build the best AI. It's whether the world is ready to pay for the kind of AI they chose to build.